What advice would you give another advisor who is listening to this that is in that same position? Maybe they're running the agency with their husband or their wife.
My advice would definitely find a way to keep it separate, because otherwise it all becomes about business, and you really need that distinction. It also helps too if you are not doing the same thing in the business, so you have very different roles. But that would definitely, I think that's been very crucial to this working so well for us.
Welcome to the Accelerate Your Insurance Sales Podcast. This is the podcast where you'll learn effective marketing and sales strategies from some of the most recognizable names in the insurance industry. We're going to teach you how to turn brand awareness into business growth by becoming the thought leader your prospects seek out.
Meghann, welcome to the Bullpen Sessions podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm excited. Let's start. The question I love to ask all advisors, because let's face it, the industry found most of us. Mm-hmm. How did you get in the insurance industry?
Oh, it's a kind of an interesting story. It was by accident, for sure.
Of course.
I was 18, fresh out of high school, went to a temp agency. I had moved from Montana. I'm from Oklahoma, but I had moved temporarily, lived in Montana because my dad had a job up there, and I moved back to Oklahoma.
Where in Montana?
About an hour south of Billings. So,
southeast corner.
Yeah. So, it was. So I decided to move back home. My plan was to start college in the fall. And so I went through a temp agency, got hired by an insurance carrier. And so as the story goes, I ended up enjoying it. Got offered a full-time job, and then it was kind of like, you know what, I'm trying to, just starting out on my own. The money was good, I thought, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do going to college, so I stuck around. And so it ended up being that I stayed at that insurance carrier for 10 years, so before I transitioned to the broker side.
What made you jump? I'm always curious. I think I might know the answer. I'd love to hear what you have to say, because you see that, right? You see a lot of advisors start as a carrier rep, maybe whether sometimes they come from the supplemental world like Aflac or Colonial. What made you finally say, all right, I'm taking the leap?
I think, at the time that I had started, which Community Care is a locally owned and operated insurance carrier in Oklahoma, when I started, there was around 25 employees. It was a baby company. By the time I left, there was 350 employees. And at that time, and especially the last 5 years of my time there, I jumped around a lot, but I ended up working in a position that had dual reporting to marketing and customer service. And I got to meet a lot of brokers that way. And to be honest, I was just like, it looked more fun on the broker side. I kind of felt like I was at a standstill, with really advancing. I was always ambitious, trying to move up within the company. And so I decided to transition to the broker side because to me, it looked like more fun. So
that is not the answer I expected. The number one answer I get when I ask a former carrier rep, what made you make the jump, is this. I worked with some brokers. I could not believe actually one business. And when I finally said, if they can do it, I can do it. That's what ultimately made me jump.
Well, and keep in mind, when I did make that jump, I was just an account manager. I worked service. So sales was not in my future at that time. It wasn't until later when I decided I wanted to try my hand at sales. Yeah. So that was a totally different transition. I got to ask,
it has nothing to do. I'm going to actually backpedal for a second.
Yeah.
How many years did you spend in Montana?
Oh, my dad moved up there. I was 14 and I left at 17.
Okay, so just a few years.
Yeah.
Very rarely. I always love trying to follow somebody's journey. I don't know if I've ever heard of somebody says that I'm from Oklahoma but spent some time in Montana. That's a first for me. Mm-hmm. What was that like? What was that transition like? Because I've played baseball in Montana for a little bit. I spent the summer there in minor league baseball. So I didn't take the beauty enough for it, but
yeah, I kind of took that for granted.
You took that for granted. What was that like moving up there?
I mean, it was different.
You went to high school then.
I homeschooled. We lived on an Indian reservation. So
you were part of what's the Indian reservation in the South?
It was the Crow Indian Reservation. Yeah. So, and my dad played softball like every single weekend. So we traveled a lot, but it was very remote. The place where we lived, there was not a lot of people. And that was one thing I really missed about Oklahoma. I was always a people person. So I was kind of ready to get back.
Our clubhouse manager, when I was playing for the Helena Brewers, was from, and I forget the name of the town down there.
I've heard of them.
He grew up near the Crow reservation as well.
Okay.
In fact, he was telling me stories of guys he played basketball with, the Native Americans, and just some of the names of the guys he played with, like Harry Whodunit, Dan Thunderhawk, names like that. But yeah, that's cool because I look back at, I only spent a summer in Montana, and I look back now and I'm like, I totally took it for granted how beautiful that place is.
I know. We live 3 hours from Yellowstone, and we did go quite a bit, but I just never realized how amazing that was until I moved away from it. And then I'm like, man, I really miss the mountains. It's just gorgeous.
Oh, I miss it now. We're back in Wisconsin, and I don't miss the number of people that are in Colorado. That was one of the things that drove us out. But man, don't get me wrong for a second. I miss those mountains. The beauty the beauty every time you got to wake up in the morning and just look at them.
Yes.
So, okay. So you make the jump to the broker role. Mm-hmm. What ultimately led you to go, I'm going to start my own agency?
Well,
because not many people have the guts to do that.
Yeah, and it was I stewed on it for about a year, and I'm usually a person that moves really quickly. I was always scared of sales, and I got an opportunity finally after being on the broker side for about 3 years to go into a sales role, and I liked it. I never really had any formal training, so but it was one of those things I always thought in the back of my mind, if I owned this agency, I could do it better. I would do it differently, just add my own style to it. And so 2016, I was single at the time, and I had a very low mortgage. I didn't have a lot of bills, and I was like, I think I can do this. And so I really wanted to try my hand at it. So that's when I took that leap. But ultimately, I just felt like always working for somebody else, I was always limited. So, and that's where I was like, I really want to build my own team and just make a go of it.
I'm curious. So that was 2016. You now had your own agency in some way, shape, or form for 8 years. Mm-hmm. Did you ever hit that, what I call the entrepreneurial epiphany, where now that you've done it, you're like, I could never work for somebody ever again?
Yes. I think about a year into that, I was like, because when I first started, it was really hard. It was scary.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so scary, because I was like, oh my gosh, my savings is depleting and I've got bills to pay. And we obviously know that we work in an industry that's a very slow sales cycle. And so nothing happened quickly. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't until I just it was like, okay, I'm either going to have to go look for a job or I'm going to make this work. And I just remember having a moment where I was like, this has to work. There's no other option. Yeah. And so I think that was really an epiphany for me. And then once I started getting some traction, I was like, I cannot go back.
Well, you and I were talking offline about that. I think a lot of people do give it a shot mm-hmm. and realize that running the agency isn't for them. So you see all of a sudden how they quickly either merge their agency with another agency, mm-hmm. Maybe lucky enough just in a short period of time to get acquired. Mm-hmm. But they do that because they realize that maybe they weren't born, they don't have the DNA to actually run the agency. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right. It's more about self-awareness.
Yeah.
Do you have what it takes to actually run the agency and be the CEO?
Yes.
Because I see a lot of advisors in our industry that, man, they go to work for an agency, have success, and at some point they get frustrated because they're like, man, I'm selling all this business, but I got to split over half the commission with my agency. I'm going to go start my own agency so I don't have to split commission anymore. But what they don't take into account is there's this whole other side called running the business.
Yes.
It's not just about selling insurance.
Yes.
And I wanted you on because I think, let's just face it, 8 years is still early. Like, you're early in your agency's existence. But one thing I think you've done a good job early on, as long as I've known you, is recognizing that it isn't just go sell more insurance so we can grow. Mm-hmm. You actually have to put the right things in place.
Yes. And the right people.
And so talk to me, I'd love to just get inside your head for a second and go, all right, as you're building this now, mm-hmm. where do you view the importance of people? And when I say people, not just, hey, go find more people. It's the right people too, but also processes.
Yeah. I think I really had to kind of take a step back for a minute and realize what my strengths and weaknesses were. And there were a lot of things, especially in the very beginning, you were doing it all. I mean, you're trying to, from sales to service to, just all your overhead. And I think I realized And I did cycle through a few people, finding people that were not a good fit. And Kristen she is literally my right hand with a lot of stuff with serving people, and she has very much an operational type background. That's how her brain is wired, which is something I truly lack. So I am definitely more the visionary person.
Do you think that's what makes it work well?
Oh.
You're the visionary. She's the integrator to steal the entrepreneurial operating system terminology? Okay.
Yes. And my husband is the same way. He does it in a different aspect, but when we decided to do this together, he likes to handle the things that I don't like to handle. So all the back end stuff. So really, I think just my biggest thing is having the right people, because I didn't always know the best. I'm not the most organized person by nature. I am enough to be decent, but it is not my strong suit. So having people around me that are good with creating those processes has been absolutely critical for our success. So
what was it like for you? Because you talked about, obviously when you're starting an agency, you're doing all of it.
Yeah.
And then you hit that point where you're like, okay, I know I'm good at it. Doesn't mean I should do it. Was it hard for you to delegate at first? Because I think that is something a lot of advisors or agency owners struggle with.
Yeah. And the first few people that I had, it just didn't work out to the expectation. I don't know if it wasn't conveyed or it just didn't happen the way that I wanted it to. But I was always so big on things being quick to respond to people. And so, yes, delegating was hard letting go, because I was always afraid, what if they don't take care of it?
Yeah.
And so.
Or do it to my expectations.
Yes. And to the standard that I want to hold.
Yep.
And instead and I had to really kind of take a step back too, because I will say I was probably not the best leader, just learning to lead people. And so there's that point of, do you micromanage? Do you let go? And I think too, it's just once you kind of learn that balance, and you've got to be able to trust your team and just be able to throw it. I feel like I am much better at that today than I was 8 years ago or even 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think one of the things you have to do, I'm going through it too, is, one of my quirks or exposures is I'm a people pleaser, which for a long time hindered me. And it still does today sometimes, where I allow my calendar to get too full, things like that. And what I realized is you have two choices. You can work hard to overcome it.
Yeah.
Or just put guardrails in place.
Yes.
That almost force you to eliminate it. So for example, I've recently brought on my fiance, who's in our business now, and she's more on the operations side, because that's her strength, integrator. I'm the visionary.
Yes.
One of the things I assigned her was, you're going to own my inbox, you're going to own my calendar, because I know I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah.
I will allow my calendar to get filled up with other people's priorities because I want to please.
Yeah.
Your job, don't let it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you and I have talked about the importance of having an EA, an executive assistant. I think the number one thing a business operator has to look at is, who's the person who's going to manage you?
Yes. Yes. And I totally agree with that.
And so you're at a point right now where I feel like you're at a pivot point where you've grown, probably through a lot of hard work, just grinding it out.
Yes.
And now for you to continue growing, what got you here won't get you there. Where are some, if you don't mind sharing, like, where are some of the areas of the agency right now you're really looking to put the right processes in, and ultimately maybe the right people in, so that you guys can keep growing efficiently?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we are trying to automate some of the things that we do, because I think we've been taking the long route on a lot of things. So that's number one. I think number two is just really having processes in place where we're all doing the same thing on the same timeline. So it's basically rinse and repeat. So that has, since working with you especially, I feel like that is really we're seeing the benefits of that. This has probably been the smoothest fourth quarter we have ever had.
Awesome.
And so we've already started implementing a lot of those things, and, with a new CRM, and just having, our workflow is just more on repeat than it is, okay, what am I doing with this? How have I done this yet? The checklist, that's huge. So we know and we all know what the expectation is and what the time, to respond to people and get back to people. So we're all on the same page. So now I'm starting to see this kind of like running very much on autopilot in some ways. And it's, our clients are appreciating it. It's been less stressful for us. So I think that's been huge.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know one of the tools you guys have been using really well is Monday, Monday.com.
Yes.
Talked about, like, how are you guys using that? How has that created that efficiency for you?
Yeah. Well, Kristen, who is the main one who's been doing that, she's building different processes where, when we implement a new group and, into our system, we do an implementation call. We're just adding in those extra touches that I feel like we were lacking before, but literally building out processes for every single thing we do. So our team, if somebody's out of the office, somebody can just basically look in and see exactly what needs to be done.
That is, I hope everybody heard that. Yeah. That is the biggest challenge I see inside agencies today is they don't have one standardized process.
Yeah.
So if you have a team of 4 account execs, every account exec does it their own way.
Yes.
And the problem with that is when that one account exec is out, let's say it's on maternity.
Yes.
Somebody's got to fill in and they have no clue how they were doing it. And it makes the entire process collapse.
Yes.
I remember I was exposed to this when I went to work for an agency back in Wisconsin back in 2010 or 11. Dan Burkwald and Associates, one of the best I've ever seen build processes. And I remember when I took over one of the account exec roles, for the first week, I literally sat down. I took over about 25 clients, and we had notes on every client for the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. And there was a specific way on how every client was run. And it took me 1 week to know exactly where every one of my new clients was. Yeah. So that when my next quarterly meeting with that client, where I was literally meeting with them for the first time, we didn't drop off at all.
Yeah.
That was where I was exposed to the power of processes.
Yeah. It really does make a difference.
Yeah.
So
what about, as far as you see scaling the business right now, and I know one thing you're also starting to do, and I'd love to get your take on it as somebody who's going through it. We've talked about the power in the niches.
Yes.
Right? I think it's easy in the benefits space. I used to believe this. Well, benefits, everybody needs them. Right? I don't care what industry you're in, you have unhealthy employees and you have bad health insurance. But there still is the power in the niching.
Yeah.
And I know you've started to build a nice little niche in certain industries, like churches and things like that. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the power in that? The power in niching and specializing in a certain industry or a certain type of prospect?
Yeah. Well, for one, it gives us a targeted market. And so I feel like we're not just, we obviously work with industries of all types, but the church thing kind of came about just this past year. And I think you're the one who actually suggested that, which it was kind of funny because I was like, when you first suggested it, I was like, I'm not sure that's a good idea because we would be really limiting ourselves. Mm-hmm. But the more I thought about it, I was like, man, I do work with a lot of churches. It just naturally seems they find me. I don't always necessarily go looking for them. But the more I thought about it, it gives us a targeted audience. And then 2, I think that we'll have more brand recognition, being known for one thing, so, and that was a big thing to us. The more I thought about it, I was like, no, I think I do want to go in all in on this. And so, which ironically too, we won a large account just like a month and a half ago because we do work with churches, and it's like they're already telling their friends who work in, the same industry.
Exactly.
So it's like the power of referrals just all over again. And it's like, hey, this lady over here, her team works with nothing but churches. And so we obviously not just churches, but to them that's how we made them feel. So because we did create a program specifically for churches and nonprofit.
And I want you to go a layer deeper because you said, when I made the suggestion, you're like,
yeah,
it's going to limit us.
Yes.
What's your experience been?
It's been the opposite. It's been the absolute opposite. So now we're booking some conferences right now that are church leadership conferences. We are just having more conversations, people reaching out. They're like, not this year, but next year we want to talk to you. So yeah, it's been quite that. We are attracting, our ideal client to us.
Well, and you and I have talked about there is the power to be able to walk into the office of that niche that you focus on is say, we've built something for you. You know, I have never really said this up until recently. I really believe as an advisor, if you're more the traditional agency who kind of markets everything you do, right? We do medical, we do dental, we do life, we do short, all. The more you market what you do, the more restricted your market is.
Yes.
Those are the agencies that are restricted to their local market. When you become a specialist in something very specific, you expand your market.
Yeah.
So if you are aiming to become the known go-to agency that works with churches, guess what? Your market's no longer Dallas, Texas.
Yes.
It expands greatly.
Yes.
Because word of mouth spreads quickly.
Yes.
And so that's what I love about what you're doing is you have narrowed your focus, which is only going to expand the market you can serve. And the proof's in the pudding. You work with churches that are nowhere near Dallas, Texas.
Yes. We've got them from, New Jersey to Georgia to, just all over the place. So,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Hey, it's Andy Neary. Thank you for listening to the Accelerate Your Insurance podcast. Did you know the ideas we share on the show are things we actually specialize in helping you implement? If you want to increase your sales, make more money, and be the thought leader your prospects reach out to, please go to my LinkedIn profile, DM me, and sign up for a free discovery call. Again, go to my LinkedIn profile, DM me, and we'll get you set up for a free discovery call. All right, now back to the show.
Let's get to know Meghann High a little bit. Let's talk about what makes Meghann tick. And I think you just got nervous when I said that.
I did. I'm like,
let's talk about this.
About me.
Well, one thing I do want to talk about is you're running an agency and you're also a new mom.
Yes.
What has that been like?
And
a new mom for the first time.
Yes. Well, and just let me back up for a second, Andy. I did not meet my husband until I was 41. So I had been single, never married before. He had never been married before. And we met during COVID. So like everybody else's story, it all just kind of happened really fast.
Wait, hold. Meghann, how is it possible how could you have met in COVID? We weren't supposed to be by each other.
Right. Well, we actually met 1 month before everything shut down. So I think I met him.
We dated 6 feet apart for 1 year. Got it.
Pretty much. So that's kind of how it felt. It was a whirlwind. I was at a point in my life just thinking, you know what, I'm just going to be a career person. That's where I'm going to invest all my energy. Never going to find anybody. I just kind of had accepted that. But although I always wanted to be married and have a family. And so, Jake and I got married in 2021 and had my first only baby in 2022. So, and I will tell you, one thing they don't tell you when you have your first, that you're not going to sleep the first year. And so that was rough. And in the midst of all that life change, we also decided to move from Tulsa to Texas. So there was a lot.
What was behind that decision?
My husband is from Texas.
Okay.
So, and we kind of made that decision. When my son was born, we found out he had hip dysplasia. So we were taking him to Scottish Rite and we were often staying in Plano. And I was like, I really like it here. But my largest client, ironically, was already in Texas. I already had clients in Texas. And so I really wanted my son to be close to family. My family's not very close together. Everybody's kind of spread out. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And once I, shared that with my husband, he would have never asked me to leave Oklahoma. He knew I had started a business there, had a lot of relationships there. But when I made that suggestion, I think he was ready to pack his bags that night. And I knew, I was like, oh, there's no turning back. Like, what have I done? But, we ended up moving to Rockwall. It has been the best decision we've ever made.
So there's a lot to unpack. So let's start with the child. You got a baby boy, right?
Yes.
What's his name again?
Max.
Yes. How has that been? We might have some new mothers listening in here that are agency owners as well.
Yeah.
Any advice for that, just with your own experience?
You're going to have to learn to be more flexible when you have a baby. So things do not always run on our schedule. That was probably been the hardest thing because I was a very routine person.
You were also a career-minded woman.
Yes. And to take a seat back and just be like, you know what, this is the season. I'm in a different season of life and I can't always just drop what I'm doing to run to an appointment or go take it. That's where I came to rely on my team heavily. And I think that's where the delegation became easier during that season because it was imperative that I did do that. So, but yeah, it's it was a challenge, I would say, those first few months, because again, I was running on very little sleep.
Yeah.
But just learning to take a step back, and I really had to cut my hours back a little bit and reprioritize everything from how I had it. But
okay, so on top of that, you decide to move to a new market where nobody knows you.
exactly.
Right? What has that been like? How have you, it reminds me of myself 10 years ago when I moved to Colorado and nobody knew who that guy was. But you took it a step further. Nobody knows you nor your agency. I at least went to work for an agency that had some brand awareness.
Exactly.
What has that experience been like?
Oh, that was, at first I was like, oh, this will be nothing. But no, it was different. It was definitely like, people truly don't know me. I don't have the network around me it's making all new connections. It's really getting involved in a new community, getting out there. We started with the very obvious and basic things, joining our chamber, getting involved with the church. It's just creating, those relationships. And it takes a while. It does not happen overnight, which is also something I felt like I could really feel a sense of urgency on one hand, because I just felt like I wasn't doing anything because I wasn't moving at the pace I was used to. But on the other hand, it was one of the best things, I think, because I really had to take a step back, and it was like, it's good to just get to know people, and I kind of relied back on something that someone told me a very long time ago when I first started in my career. Don't make a prospect, make a friend. And so that's kind of where I relied on that. And I was like, I'm not going to try to sell anybody on anything. I'm just going to get to know them. And I'm starting to finally see people are coming around, because the old role, people like to do business with who they know, like, and trust. But you got to make yourself known. You got to, and it takes a while, but it does happen after time.
Well, and I think a lot of people in our industry specifically have the belief of, well, you also have to have a deep network.
Yes.
Right. And I don't think that's true as much anymore because of the tools and the technology we have. You've been able to go into a new community and build a nice agency. I mean, granted, it was already in existence in Oklahoma, but you've come into a new market and built a nice agency, and you didn't have, you started with zero connections there.
Yeah. Yeah. This is true. I think really too, leveraging our social media, that has, it got a lot of attention locally. Like, who are these people? So I think there's so much power in that. And I think it's when you and I started working together, I was like, I need to learn how to do that, because I've never been a big social media person. Yeah. So, but that really did create some awareness, for people locally, to let them know we were here. So,
well, and I think what you've done so well overall is, there's a lot of advisors who are probably listening to this, either have their own agency or maybe they're inside one right now and have had thoughts of like, man, what would it be like to go run build my own? You are somebody who has done it the right way.
Yeah.
Right. What I like about your journey, quite frankly, is you have not been an overnight success.
Yeah.
You didn't grow your agency from 0 to 5 million in 4 years.
Right.
But you're putting the right things in place now so that when you are that $3, $4, $5 million agency, it's going to run smooth.
Yeah.
And it's not going to require more of your time.
Right.
I think one of the exercises we did together that really, I think, opened your eyes was when I had you do that drip matrix.
Yes.
That comes from the book by Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time, where it was, all right, you need to look at all the activities you're doing right now.
Yes.
And DRIP is an acronym. Delegate, replace, invest, produce. Delegate, what are you doing right now that has to go? Like, it doesn't serve you and it's not helping you grow your company.
Yeah.
Was there anything that fell in there when we did that exercise? We're like, okay, I got to stop doing this right now if my agency is going to grow.
Yeah, it was the social media, and I just recently delegated that out because it wasn't getting done the way that it needed to get done. So yes, that would probably one of the biggest things. Because I kept thinking, I'll do it, I'll get to it, and it didn't. It would always fall on the back burner.
Well, and when you look at somebody in your position, the R is replace. That's the stuff that does grow the business, but you shouldn't be doing. Where most of us ignore, especially when we're in the early stages of growing our business, is the I, invest. Invest is things you love to do, but don't necessarily grow the business.
Yeah.
Well, guess what that is for you? You're a new mom.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people ignore that I piece, investing in you and your family and your relationships, because you're chasing success.
Yeah.
But 5 years now down the road, yeah, great. You have a thriving agency. Your family hates you. You have no relationships. And I think there's a lot of people that are there if they're willing to admit it. And I think you're doing it the right way. You're trying to grow an agency that's not in control of you.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
It does. It's like every day I've made it a point, especially since I've had my son. But prior to having my son, I mean, I would work till the evening if I needed to, just whenever. But now it's every day is a hard stop at 4:00. I do not take appointments. Awesome. I am mom. So I'm taking care of dinner, taking care of, spending time with our son, our family. So yeah, that has been a huge thing, and just creating those boundaries even in your business, because it can take over your life. And then there's no room for anybody else. So, yeah.
Are there any habits that you had, that daily habits that you deploy just to make sure you're operating at your best?
Not really. I will tell you, that is one thing I have since moving, and I just kind of feel like that is a goal for 2025 to really make those changes. So just trying to get healthier. I've been very cautious of what I've been eating the last few months and just being more mindful of that, but I have not gone all in on that like I intend to. So, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have a lot on your plate right now.
It's been a lot. And I think, too, it's going to be one of those things where it's going to involve hiring a coach for that, because sometimes you just need help in that area. Yeah. And I needed help with business. I need one personally.
I'd love to hear from you about this. I could probably use some advice on this. What has it been like to have your husband in the business? I just dove into that world, bringing my fiance into the business a little bit. How's that been? How has because I think what works well, if you said it, he's more the integrator, right? He's a detail guy.
Yes.
You're more the visionary. What has that been like to have Jake?
Yes.
Jake in the business along with you as husband, wife, mother, father of the same child, but now business partners.
Yes. Well, one thing I have loved having Jake part of the business, because again, it's knowing your strengths and weaknesses. And I'm a very action-oriented person. I'm quick to just, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And I don't put a whole lot of thought into it. Whereas he is one who is very methodical about things. He likes to think things through. So sometimes it's like he's the person I always run to now. If I'm not sure, he always comes with a lot of wisdom. And so he really is a confidant in that way. He also takes the stuff off my plate that I don't enjoy doing. I hate payroll. I hate reading through contracts, and there's things sometimes you got to be careful what you're signing your name to. Yep. I always tease him and said he should have been an attorney, because there's often times when our attorney has sent stuff over, Jake inks it up or marks it all up and sends it back. I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice that, but just little things and how things are worded. So he's been very, very good. So we love the whole team likes having him a part of Inspire. So he's quiet. He's definitely in the background, but we all know he's there, and he's just so helpful. So I feel like it's nice. And I'm sure you feel this with Amy. There's also nothing like having a partner that you can trust. Yeah. And so that is also
how are you able, because I believe, do you have an office or working out of the house? I can't remember.
We have an office in Tulsa, and then here we're hoping in 2025.
But you're out of the house right now, which means guess what?
Yes.
Business is always kind of surrounding you.
Yes.
How are you two able to separate business from personal?
Yeah. Well, it helps that we, in our house, I work downstairs, have an office downstairs. His is upstairs.
Got it.
So a lot of times we don't see a lot during the day. We'll stop in, he'll come down, get a cup of coffee, what have you. So, and he knows when I'm working the doors shut, I'm usually focused on something, and vice versa. I know if his door's shut, he's obviously working on something. So, and then if there's something business-wise, I usually will text him and say, hey, can you come down here? So that's kind of how that works. And then, honestly, when our family time starts at 4:00, we don't really talk a lot about business. We leave that, and it's just truly family time. So
what advice would you give another advisor who is listening to this that is in that same position? Maybe they're running the agency with their husband or their wife and struggling a little bit, maybe to divide up the personal from the business or whatever. What advice would you give them? Yeah,
my advice would definitely find a way to keep it separate, because otherwise it all becomes about business, and you really need that distinction. It also helps too if you are not doing the same thing in the business, so you have very different roles. But that would definitely, I think that's been very crucial to this working so well for us.
So I got advice on that. And mine happened by a complete happenstance.
Okay.
When I brought Amy into the business, I already had an Amy in the business.
Yes.
And so if anybody's listening in and you have a spouse, this is a great tip. So we had our first team meeting.
Yeah.
And I had both there. And I kept saying Amy E, Amy C, because it's Amy Essig and Amy Clout. I'm like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
One, I can't just say Amy because they'll both go, what? And now saying Amy C or Amy, that sounds the same.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, we got to change this up. So after that team meeting, I told my Amy, I said, all right, here's the deal. We got to figure this out. You're Amy Jean Clout. So from here on out, you are AJ on the team. And she's Amy. We have to have a way to separate this. So she built her own business brand called AJ.
Oh, how funny.
Her email is AJ at Complete Game Consulting. She will answer the phone. Hello, it's AJ. But what's been so beneficial about it is we don't have kids.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't have the buffer of like, oh, it's kid time. It has allowed us to separate business and personal life.
I love
so if
it.
she needs to talk business at dinner, she'll say, hey, AJ needs you for a second. I'll go, okay, it's business. And it's
great.
actually helped.
Yeah.
So advice to anybody who has a spouse in the house, let them be two different names. It is the best way to separate business and personal.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So, yeah.
Well, looking back, so you've had a fun 8-year run here, growing your agency. And it's, again, you're at that point. The reason I want to have you on now is you're at that point, you're about to take off, right? Looking back over the last 8 years, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned as a business operator? It took you 41 years.
Yeah.
Or not 41, but most of you were a late bloomer when it came to being an entrepreneur. Same here.
Yeah. I was 37, I think, when I started.
I was 41, so very similar. Looking back at these 8 years, what are some of the bigger lessons you learned by operating your own business?
Sometimes you just have to go for it. You know, I always say you don't learn to drive learn to drive in a parked car. You just have to take action and go for it. And sometimes you don't have to have it all figured out because you're going to figure it out along the way. So that's number one. Number two, don't be afraid to fail. Because all failure is your education. So you learn how not to do things. So until you figure it out. Failure, not being afraid to fail, I think is huge. So.
And now what about that agency owner who is right at that spot you're at, where you're at that point where you've had success, you've grown, but you know what got you here won't get you there.
Right.
And they're looking to now take it to maybe double the size of their agency. What advice would you give that agency owner?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Everyone can use a coach. Everyone can use a mentor. So I think that was kind of where I felt like, how am I going to, I'm in a new market. We knew we wanted to scale, but I didn't really have anyone that I felt comfortable asking. Because I think too, I have other friends that have agencies that never felt like a comfortable question to really ask sometimes, because they're like, why are you asking me? You know? But I felt like when you and I connected, it was just at a pivotal moment where like, you know what? I can choose to work with somebody or I can stay stuck. And I did feel stuck. Yep. You know, at that time. And now it feels like I have a lot more clarity, which allows us to proceed forward.
Awesome.
So,
well, if somebody was listening in and they are that agency owner and they want to know a little bit more about your journey, or maybe just connect with you on LinkedIn, wherever, to connect and collaborate, what are the easiest ways to get a hold of you?
Yeah, my contact information through our website at inspirebenefits.com. And of course, it's Meghann High on LinkedIn. So.
And that's Meghann with
two N's. Meghann. Yes. Unique.
Well, I got to tell you, I know transparency, obviously we work together. I've been very inspired, no pun intended. If you don't know, the name of our agency is Inspire Benefits. But I've been inspired by the work you've put in. You're somebody who is taking action. You know,
Thank you.
I coach a lot of people, and there's a lot of people who listen to what I say when we're coaching, but there isn't always action being taken on the words that they hear. You have. And it's been fun to watch your transition, even just the last year.
Yeah.
Now finding the niche, growing in that niche, new website, new message. It's awesome. It's awesome to see. And I think when we look back and look at you 2-3 years from now, I mean, when your agency is at a whole new level, it's going to be exciting to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe in 2 or 3 years we can have another conversation because I'm sure there'll be more nuggets of wisdom.
100%. Well, Meghann, it's been an honor to have you on.
Thank you.
If you're listening in and you're an advisor, especially if you own your own agency, number one, if you're looking to go out on your own or you own your own agency today and you feel like you are at that, you've hit a ceiling, take Meghann's words of wisdom to advice to heart, because to grow your agency, to take it to the next level, what got you here won't get you there. It's people, it's processes. But most importantly, I think with what you said, it's just jumping in and doing it and knowing you're going to fail and fail as often as you can, because that's the only way you fail forward.
Yes.
So, well, Meghann, thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody else, be good.
That's all we got for this episode of the Accelerate Your Insurance Sales podcast. One of the most valuable things you can do to help us and other new potential listeners find our show is for you to rate the show and leave a review. So as a special bonus for you, if you leave us a review, take a screenshot of your review and send it to me as a DM to my LinkedIn profile. I will send you a free copy of our LinkedIn Diamond Playbook, our proven 4-step strategy to grow your business on LinkedIn. So go right now, leave us a review, screenshot it, and send me a DM on LinkedIn. Also, please share this podcast with anyone you think would enjoy it. That's it for now.